This is a response to Greg Koukl's latest video, Logic, a Human Invention, where he argues that logic really isn't invented by human beings. I guess he thinks it's discovered by human beings. And Actually, I think one of the most interesting arguments for the existence of God, I think, is a Greg Bahnsen-esque type of discussion. I'm going to include a link in the sidebar to Greg Bahnsen's channel, and do go and check out his video on. There's a playlist there called "The Great Debate." Do go and check it out. It's very interesting. I do think it's if you idolatrize logic to the point where you say it is immaterial, it is eternal, it is true for all times. If you go that far, then you have already idolatrized logic to the point where you've created a God, and you might as well say that there is a God at that point. This little video here, I'm going to argue against the fact that logic is eternal, that logic is anything other than really just a human invention. And the way I'm going to do it is by taking off of, in Greg Koukl's video, he reads a little bit from a track that he has there saying that, all languages use subjects, all languages use predicates. Anybody who talks at all has to use logic. And I mean, this is true to a point, and he says things like, if you're going to argue against logic, you're going to use logic to argue against itself, so you just kind of self-destruct. It blows up in your face. And it's true, but that's precisely the problem. When you push this stuff, it blows up in your face, okay? It's a very interesting argument, a very simple argument I'm going to give here. It's not a postmodern argument. It was well known to whoever wrote the epistle to Titus, writing in Paul's name, back in the New Testament, mentions the Epimenides paradox. So this has been known since ancient times, that logic blows up in this fashion. But nobody has ever, in those thousands of years, really come to grips with it. So please join me over at the chalkboard. I'll go through it real quick. It's a very, very simple proof. Okay, as a point of departure, let's take Paul's epistle to Titus, or somebody writing in the name of Paul, who wrote, "One of Crete's own prophets has said it. Cretans are always liars, evil brutes, lazy gluttons. He has surely told the truth." Well, I don't know if he said they were evil brutes and lazy gluttons, but Epimenides of Crete, himself a Cretan, did say that Cretans are always liars. And of course, this is paradoxical, as we all know. Let's isolate the paradox here in its most crystalline form that's easy to work with here. Greg in his pamphlet said that every language relies on subjects and predicates here. So let's analyze this in terms of subject and predicate form, okay? L is the subject of the sentence here, and L is actually the sentence itself. L is the sentence, L is not true. So the subject is L, the predicate is not true. All right. Now, let's see how this leads directly to paradox using the laws of logic. The next sentence I put up here is X is true if and only if X. Now, whatever we want to think about truth, or whether truth is relative or not relative or absolute or whatever you want to say about truth, this is something you do want to say about truth. So for example, grass is green is true if and only if grass is green. In other words, I can put any sentence in for X here, and I'll come up with a true sentence, right? Snow is white if and only if snow is white. Logic is eternally true if and only if logic is eternally true. This sort of stuff, right? Well, let's see how this leads to paradox here. Let's plug in this liar sentence here, L in for X. All right, this is a very simple derivation. Okay, this is schoolboy logic here, right? So plugging in L for X, we get the sentence, L is true if and only if L. Well, let's expand once again. L is equal to L is not true. So let's plug in L is not true for the last instance of L here, and we get L is true if and only if L is not true. All right, now, why is this such a problem? Well, there's two cases. This is the law of excluded middle. So L is either true or L is not true. So let's do a case analysis here. Suppose L is true. Well, L is true implies, if we read off here, L is true is right here, right? L is true implies that L is not true. L is true if and only if L is not true, right? So that would say, since from 1 and 2, we can imply that L is not true. But sentence number 1 is a direct contradiction to sentence number 3. I should put sentence 3 here, right? So it directly contradicts. Okay, we can do it the other way too, right? Suppose L is not true. If L is not true, we can read off from this that L would have to be true. And that would be another contradiction. So logic just completely blows up this way. It just does. So basically, logic just self-destructs this way. Okay, now this is not a postmodern argument. This has been well known since antiquity. We thought we'd solved it with Tarski's theory of truth, but no less of a logician than Saul Kripke, who's the greatest living philosopher today and a devout worshiper of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and without whom, I mean, you can't think of there being a Alvin Plantinga without there being a Saul Kripke. I mean, you know, Plantinga is also a devout believer. Saul Kripke pointed out that this is still a problem. It has not been banished by Tarski, and they're still writing books about this. Here's one by Hartree Field, Saving Truth from Paradox. I've got a whole bookshelf full of books on this from contemporary philosophers. This is a live issue today. No, if you take the concept of subject, if you take the concept of predicate, if you take the concept of truth, if you take the concept of contradiction, if you take the concept of implication and logic, and mix them all together, it leads directly to a contradiction. It blows up in your face, right? So it's like when Christian apologists say things like, you know, well, you have to use logic to argue against logic. I mean, that's really the whole point. If you're using logic, it just self-destructs like this in your face. And that's just a brute fact about logic as we know it today and as we understand today. One of these concepts has got to give. Either contradiction's got to give, subjecthood has got to give, predicate's got to give, our notions of truth. They all can't be simultaneously true. All right? So, and nobody knows what to do about this. And nobody has known what to do with this for thousands of years. So I think this is, you know, I'm not to say that there is no God or anything like this, but just to say that logic is also shifting sand to try to build this sort of theological argument on. You know, logic is not some sort of pure, infallible method that we've somehow discovered or has been delivered unto us. So, you know, if you want to build an argument for God, you're just going to have to use something besides logic. I hope this was interesting.